Hello and welcome back to the Facts of Facts, the only Facts of Life podcast that bought stock in tricky popcorn sauce. How are you, Britt?
Now I want some popcorn.
Right?
Yeah, except the way that Natalie ate the popcorn in this episode was truly deeply repulsive, and she shouldn't have been doing that on camera. That was disgusting.
Yeah, no, it seems like a time before we had agents for our actresses that were like there to be like, she will not eat on camera.
Natalie was like, I'll eat on camera.
Yeah. What do you need me to do? Bring it. We are here today to discuss episode 20 of season 4. We are really near the end of season 4, and I will be honest with you, I actually like all the episodes coming up.
Does anything happen in those?
Yeah, we're very close to graduation. We got college applications. We got finals coming up. We got some big stuff. Like normal. I'm a girl. I'm in high school stuff. Not as much, a princess came to town and killed herself or whatever they've been doing this season. They're normal episodes that show the direction I think the show will take to heart.
Normal things that girls in high school do, which is trade penny stocks. And
no, this was not a normal one. I'm not.
So this is the finale of the ridiculousness.
I will say yes, just because I know that that's what you want me to say.
So, you texted me before, because you watched this before I did, as usual, but you actually watched this quite a while ago. So
I did. I watched this several days ago, but then I watched this literally moments before we started recording, which is an unusual. I just had a busy schedule, so I did my notes early, but then I wanted to refresh myself. And when I refreshed myself, without having to, the mundanity of doing all of my little notes, I realized that this is an empty, hollow, not good episode.
Yeah. You texted me and you said, oh my God, this week we have an A, a B, and a C plot.
I was wrong about the C plot.
You were wrong about that, because here's the other thing, is that not only that, but if you can't master an A plot, you're not allowed to have a B plot. Like,
they did have a B plot.
This episode was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It squandered such a great opportunity of Natalie getting her first serious boyfriend who actually likes her.
Yeah.
And fucking around with her. And Tootie gets jealous of that and so sabotages it. And that's a really fun, there's meat in that. But no, we get half of them yelling at one another about not communicating. And then the other half of the episode is Blair and Joe talking about stocks. Just don't give them anything to do. Literally just have them come on screen, do something funny, squabble, but don't take up all the episode had to be devoted to 50% of blow. No, not at all. It's such a boring plot.
It was such a boring plot. I think they thought they had comedy gold with the idea of compact limousines, and they did not.
No. So a compact limousine is a car, is a regular taxi, I assume.
I assume as well.
Car.
Well, but that is what they were given, and they tried their best. I think Blair had a funny little scream. It was not a good episode. It didn't showcase anything that I like about this show, but it also didn't do anything outlandishly horrible where we can have fun. We didn't even have Slave Day this week.
No, we didn't. Although I'll say this, that they, it felt like this was 2 hours long. It felt weirdly long and even though nothing happens.
Well, that's the thing, is it felt really long the first time. The second time, it took 2 seconds because I wasn't stopping it to take notes, and I was like, nothing happened. nothing still happened. All right, something's gonna no, and I know what's happening. I'm like listening to it in the back of my mind, doing other things. I'm like, oh my god, like nothing happens in this episode.
And all that's the thing is that like the big plot is that Tootie gets jealous of the fact that Natalie has this new boyfriend, Gil.
Yes.
Really? We're gonna go with Gil?
Gil Haney.
Gil Haney. Did this writer, Kimberly Hill, hate a person named Gil Haney and was like, I'm going to put this person's name in here?
No, because she couldn't have, because she made Gil Haney one of the most reasonable people in this entire episode.
Yeah, he was totally fine. Do we ever see him again?
No, of course not. In fact, really, Hollywood almost never sees him again, but we will get to that shortly. Yeah, so let's we have mentioned, so Azad Khalada, of course, directed. Kimberly Hill was our writer. She wrote our Earwax episode.
Oh, God.
That was her first episode. And she will also write part 1 of the season finale. And then she's going to go away. She's going to do another show, one of several shows called ER that doesn't star George Clooney. Although, actually, this one might, because there's 2 that do. 1984 sitcom called ER. Has a slash in it. Not to be confused with like the 1987 ER that doesn't have a slash in it, but is also a sitcom. Anyway, she got her start as a production secretary for soap. She became a story editor for Facts of Life for several years before climbing her way up to writer. And prior to this, she had written on It's a Living, Family Ties, One Day at a Time, Double Trouble. Then she left to do the ER, but she came back and does a bunch of episodes in season 6. So they love her. And those season 6 episodes are actually a lot of fun. They're pretty wacky. So I'm cool with Kimberly Hill, but not based on this nor the Earwax episode. She will go on to be a producer on a sitcom called All Is Forgiven, which I'd never heard of before. It's a Bess Armstrong sitcom. And she's a TV producer and has like awful starlet as the star who hates her. And David Alan Grier is like a TV repairman who gets hired to be a TV writer by, I want to say, sort of a mix-up. And Carol Kane is on it, and so is Shawnee Smith. I actually watched an episode on YouTube, and I found it way better than this episode, effectively.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you know what? Watching a toilet commercial would have been better than watching this episode.
It depends on the toilet commercial. But after this, she will go on to write Cheers. She will write Cheers, The Tortellis, Empty Nest, Sandra Bullock's Working Girl sitcom based on the film. You're a fan of that, right?
Yeah, big.
And Easy Streets. And her last writing credit was on Al Franken's Late Line, which was a pretty good show. So, I mean, I don't know why she stopped, but that was it for her. Anyway, ready to open on the show?
Yeah, where do we start? Where could we?
I think we're in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
This is where I thought we had a C plot. I thought Blair, last minute, filling out college applications about Calvin Klein being her inspiration. I thought that was going to go anywhere, but it's never mentioned again.
Right, of course not. Here's the thing: if anyone had read this script before they shot it, right, and given any sort of notes, they would have been like, just condense Joe and Blair's whole plot line into being a project that they're working on together for econ class. Just have that be their thing, that they're picking out 2 stocks and they're being competitive about that. That's good.
You solved it.
I solved the problem. No,
it makes a lot more sense.
We just have Blair just sort of floating around all episode, giving bad advice to everyone.
Yes.
It's bad. Also, like, the other thing is that, so she's like, Mrs. Garrett comes in being like, Blair, what are you up to? And she's like, oh, Mrs. Garrett, I'm just filling out my college applications. But, I don't really need to fill out any of these. They would be lucky to have a Blair Warner and attending any of them. And she's like, Mrs. Garrett's like, well, what is it? What do you have to write? What are you writing about? Oh, I just have to write my essay. It's about the most influential person. And my answer is, Calvin Klein. Blair, I don't think that's exactly what they want. And it's just like, well, okay, well, go with the joke, right? Make that a bad idea, and then have Blair have to, this was clearly the tipping point where it's like, maybe we we shouldn't trust Blair with anything.
It's very weird. They trust her again shortly, but they have not trusted her with much as of late.
Except everyone in this then starts trusting her again, even though Joe explicitly says after this, she's like, Mrs. Garrett, Joe comes in, she's like, I'm going to get in the market. And Mrs. Garrett's like, Joe, are you sure that's a good idea? Maybe you shouldn't be, gambling with money and blah, blah, blah on the stocks. And then she's like, I'm not going to get involved in that. And Mrs. Garrett, leaves. She's like, and Joe's like, wait, Mrs. Garrett, I want your help. Please come help me pick out these stocks.
It's so weird how Mrs. Garrett is, repulsed by the idea of stocks. It's, literally, she's like, I'm going to start an OnlyFans.
So she literally, runs away. And then Blair's like, wait, I can help you. I'm rich. I know how to deal with money. I'm a great idea. I have great ideas for, how to invest your $30,
yes.
like a fucking mutual fund or something, But anyway, and then Joe's like, fuck you. I don't want your idea. And then the next scene, she's like, Blair has a great idea.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. But also, I would like to
start again. But it's the bizarreness of this, Blair coming in saying something clearly stupid, and then everyone for the rest of the episode taking her advice.
Yeah, it's Blair. It makes sense. But Blair does start this off when Joe says she's going into the market, and Blair's like, "Oh, could you get me some yogurt?" Okay, do these girls have to supply their own yogurt? They live in a cafeteria.
I know.
Who? These girls are literally going out and supplying their own yogurt. The one thing that they should have is free access to yogurt.
Room and board. It's everything. If you are going to Eastland, if you are living on campus, that is the food that you eat is included in your tuition.
Yes. But when you're not just living on campus, but living in and working for a cafeteria, your yogurt desires should be built into what they're ordering. We know Blair likes her yogurt, so we get a little bit of extra yogurt because we have this giant fridge. That's where the yogurt's coming from. Nobody's like, oh, you're going to the market? Get me. No. It's not happening.
Give me a tiny Go-Gurt.
Yes, please. And then also, a couple things about Joe and the stock market. One, she carries that fucking newspaper everywhere. If you want Joe to talk about stocks instead of motorcycles, hands her that newspaper, and then that's the program. That's changing the tape in the Teddy Ruxpin.
No, but it's so funny. Also, it's like Joe comes in blaring in there, she's like, I'm gonna go into the market.
Huge news! Everybody must know. I need to alert everyone.
I'm going into the market. I'm entering the market. And it's the funny thing is that I kept writing down there's no jokes.
I didn't get there until the end of the episode. There's one point in my notes I was like, I haven't laughed once. Have they even tried to make me laugh?
No, and they then again just sort of keep using terminology Joe just comes in here to check out the Dow Jones and then leaves or whatever, and it's okay, so you know what that term is, but again, it's this such vagueness. And again, the thing about great comedy is that it needs to be unbelievably specific to be very funny.
And we're not even looking for very funny or great comedy. We're looking for a modicum of specificity so that this feels remotely believable and investable.
Yeah, investable. We're also just looking for baseline joke format. Set up, punchline, not just weird half-assed wordplay. I'm entering the market. Now again, that's not a joke, but it's again but then Mrs. Garrett hears that Joe is doing that and she's like, what are you doing? No.
Well, I mean, there is continuity alert here. Mrs. Garrett doesn't like the stock market because she was married to a gambler. So she doesn't throw money away, just gamblers.
Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Garrett. I appreciate that you're referencing the past and it's not, that time you went to flight school
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is not like you're trying to give a lesson where there's not like the school is teaching them about the stock market. Don't be crazy.
Right. No, and also you would think that Mrs. Garrett, being a woman of a, certain age who, probably has, a retirement fund somewhere and is in her sort of late 50s or 60s, has some knowledge about what it is to invest in stocks, so she would be the person you would go to rather than her just being like, no, stay away, like hiss, like she was like holding up like a crucifix and garlic because I was like, I'm thinking about becoming a vampire.
It was bizarre. But anyway, Mrs. Garrett wants nothing to do with this, and so then that's when Blair Officer Services and Joe is like, I don't want you. And like the audience is like, oh, you want her. It really did. It just evoked thoughts of you're fooling yourself, girl. You want her bad.
Yeah.
Look at her hair. She's gorgeous.
Her hair.
So Blair pitches her expertise and everybody walks away while she says, when Warners talk, people listen. The audience does not laugh at this, really.
Because they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, Mrs. Garrett laughs.
They don't know that's a reference to that old commercial, which we covered, I don't know, many seasons ago with E.F. Hutton. It's the one commercial that's like, where it's like, when E.F. Hutton speaks, the market listens or whatever. And it's an old-fashioned old man joke. To even reference that, of course the audience doesn't know what the hell they're talking about.
But Mrs. Garrett does laugh because she's an old lady. And to fill that void, we also have laughter coming down the hall from Natoots and a man.
Yeah, and it is raucous laughter.
Yeah, it is hilarious. Let's talk about this man briefly. His name is Gil Haney, and he's played by Jeffrey Rogers. And when I say briefly, he has very few credits. So his first role was Andy in Friday the 13th, Part 3, where he got the role by learning to walk on his hands.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Good for him.
Well, that's talent.
Yeah. The next year, he did this, and then he did an episode of Chips, and he did also the film Surf 2. So cinematically, he's all about the sequels. He appeared as Doug Fettis in the Jeff Franklin-written TV movie Young Hearts. And in 86, he closed out his career with A Saint Elsewhere and the memorable role of GI number 4 in Karate Kid Part 2.
Oh, wow. He's a real sequel king.
He is. If it's a cinematic feature, it's not a number 1.
No.
So they've just returned from a basketball game. So, of course, he gives Natalie back the volleyball and beach blanket, towel, I'm not sure, that she brought to this game.
So I couldn't tell what the hell that was. It looked like it was 2 sleeping bags wrapped inside of a giant turquoise beach towel.
Yes, I know you watched it off of a streaming service where it's a little bit fuzzy. I watched the DVD as somebody who owns the complete set, and I can tell you, I still couldn't tell you what it was. It did look like a beach towel, and it looked like there was a volleyball in there, and then maybe it was a huge towel and it was folded over a bunch, or as you said, a sleeping bag was in there.
Yeah, so it was very weird because it was this sort of odd, awkward, like mansplainy physical comedy where like they all come in together and he's carrying this giant,
wad of stupidity,
wad of sleeping bag, and then he throws it at Natalie, and then she gives it to Tootie as though it's this hot potato situation, right? And he sort of explains, he's like, you don't have to bring all that stuff for basketball games anymore. They're played indoors. And I was like, first of all, there are like no basketball games that are held outside, like ever. Like make a pickup game, or like if you're just like on your like a playground, but like not at Bates Academy. You're going to be in the gymnasium.
Of course. I felt like it was weird that he was saying this now, because Natalie had arrived with that blanket, beach ball, wad, whatever it was, hours ago, and then they sat and watched a whole game together. It wasn't like he was playing, he was watching.
Right.
So
and they could have had like literally any other like physical comedy thing. Like it could have been like, oh wow, you won the basketball from the game because you hit it from the half court. I didn't know they had such an arm on you, Natalie. And then they could have just had this cute thing with the basketball, not just this dumb thing where she's like, I didn't know how to go to a basketball game, so I brought all my belongings.
I didn't even know that it was indoors because I'm so in love with you. I just thought it was overcast.
I know.
I'm crazy.
No, I know. And that's the thing, is that I also wrote down that, you know, that what happens when anyone on this show, any of the girls, and this includes Mrs. Garrett, has a crush on someone, has any sort of love interest, they immediately act like they've had some sort of severe head trauma.
Yes.
Like, it's immediate. Like, she's like, I didn't know we were inside. I thought it was just overcast. And he's like, lol, you're hilarious. And then he's like, so are you going to introduce me to all of your friends that you told me about for an hour already?
Well, technically, Mrs. Garrett is like, ahem, there's a man and he hasn't flirted with me yet.
Yeah, and then she's like, yes. And then doesn't do anything. And it's like, if anyone acted like this, you know, when you had just met them and you had maybe some chemistry with them, and they were immediately like giving you these like incredibly gnomic weird things like, I didn't know we were indoors. There was a sky over my head because the rainbows were coming in from your eyes. Like, and then she's just like, yes, and then doesn't do anything. It's this weird way of like communicating that their hearts are fluttering or whatever, but like it makes them seem stupid.
So I'm going to just relate this to something that I did that was stupid, that I regret all the time. It wasn't romantic. I was meeting one of my favorite bands, and I was meeting them at an exclusive wine and cheese affair at Virgin Megastore in Times Square.
Ooh.
And you had to go take like 4 escalators down to where the wine and cheese gathering was.
In Times Square, not Union Square?
No, it was the Times Square one. It was like super low down. It's many floors. And so the meet and greet table, I met them and they were like, would you care for some wine or cheese? And I said, sure. And then I didn't take any. And I stepped back and I stepped on the up escalator. And I ended up just slowly traveling, facing the band that I loved, after saying yes to some cheese and not taking any, and just drifting away. And it was so embarrassing, and it feels like something Natalie would do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, that would have been way funnier to see, you know?
Yes, it would have been. Yeah, I do wish that I had it on camera. So, Gil has heard of Mrs. Garrett.
Yeah.
She's all eager. At Bates, do they talk about me at Bates? Are those boys so desperate they want to taste of my cherry strudel?
Yeah, no, she goes, oh yeah, no, I've heard about you. Oh, over at Bates? No, over hot dogs. What? I mean, of course I understand what we're talking about here because they were clearly eating hot dogs and Natalie was explaining who all of her best friends are, including this 60-year-old.
I think when you live with Natalie, you know when you say over hot dogs, that answers everything. Oh, so Natalie had hot dogs. She wanted to have some hot dogs, and she was eating her hot dog, couldn't stop talking about me. I got it. I knew when you said hot dogs that this was on a date from Natalie. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That
anyway,
is my theory, because it is a very weird transition.
I wrote down, is this the first attempt at a joke? Like in this episode?
Is that an attempt at a joke? I guess it is.
About you over hot dogs. But again, that's also kind of a very funny thing to say about like a person that you've just met. You know what I mean? Like, let's say like I was introducing you to my my husband, and Peter was like, and I said, oh, this is Dominik. He's one of my oldest friends, whatever. And you said, oh yeah, no, I know who he is. Yeah, no, I learned about you over hot dogs. You would think, has Britt had a stroke? What is going on?
Well, only because I know that you don't eat hot dogs. But if you were Natalie, I'd be like, that makes perfect sense. That's the only argument that I have for this line, because I did think about it exactly the way you're thinking about it, where I was like, what? Who would say that? And I was like, well, I guess if you know Natalie, you know hot dogs come up a lot.
So briefly, can I just say one thing that I think I may have brought this up on this podcast in the past, but I do need to briefly mention it because...
That you spent some time overseas?
No, a different thing is that one time when I was at my old job, we had a cafeteria, and every single day I would get a salad for lunch, and it would be in one of those clear plastic, containers that you then put on the scale and it weighs it or whatever, and I would basically have almost the same thing every single fucking day for 5 years. And then one day the cafeteria decided to switch it up and be more, concerned about the environment, and changed over to recyclable paper opaque containers. And I got my salad as usual, and I went over to the same person who always checks me out, and she looks me in the eye and she goes, hot dogs? And I was like, that can't, real? I was like, really? I get the same. Yes, today's the day I decided to go with hot dogs.
Not even just one.
Hot dogs?
7.
Yeah.
Jam-packed, filled with hot dogs.
Hot dogs?
Well, I love that story.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mrs. Garrett seems disappointed that it wasn't Bates that was talking about her. But he's heard about all these women. Mrs. Garrett makes a terrible, and you came here anyway?
Great boy!
I was like, they're making jokes that aren't even funny to them.
No, I know.
Within the character. So when he meets Blair, Blair gives Natalie a sly, well done, slut.
Yeah.
Which I loved. I thought, honestly, I think of all of the actors in this episode, Blair looked at the script and Lisa Whelchel looked at the script and went, there's no jokes in here. And was like, I'm going to try my best to bring comedy.
I also feel like, yes, and I also do think that because Blair is kind of, the elder states slut of Eastland, that she is the one that you go to for advice, Are you fixing your light? Fixing your light?
My light just went down, and so just.
Anyway, no, and so it's you do get these sort of cute moments of Blair and of Natalie going to Blair for advice, dating advice, being now that I'm part of the slut club like you are, let's bond over this,
Yes, and there could have been a lot more of that. There could have been jealousy with Tootie there.
Oh my God.
Because honestly, if Natalie was an asshole anywhere in this episode, to me it was that scene.
Yeah.
But everybody's like, oh, Natalie's just as guilty as Tootie. Bullshit.
No way.
Anyway, I actually thought you were gonna side with Tootie just because you hate Natalie so much.
Well, no one is good in this. You know what I mean? Because Tootie, at least Tootie sabotages her best friend's new burgeoning relationship.
Yes.
Right? Which is really bad behavior.
Yes. Since a kid, I've always been the fact that she has that in her. Ugh.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll get into that later when we discuss her the fact that she's a Taurus.
Oh, I'm excited.
But yeah, I think that the thing is that both of them are bad, but Tootie did something pretty egregious, and then Natalie and Gil made up. So it wasn't that bad,
True. I guess. But holy shit. If a friend of mine did that, I feel like I'd be done.
Yeah, that's no more friendship. Jeez.
Yeah.
Geez.
They got over it pretty quick. But anyway, then Joe walks in without looking up from her newspaper because that's all she's got. And she says, "What do you think about oil?" And Gil says, "It's nothing without vinegar." And then Nat does one of those, and he's funny.
Oh my God.
I cringed so hard for everybody.
Yeah.
All people, all of humanity, I was cringing for.
So, yeah, Joe comes in being like, what's everyone think about oil? As though her $30 is going to go pick up, a barrel of crude from Exxon or whatever, and she's going to be in the commodities market now. She's got $30. She's literally buying, I did a lot of Investopedia research today. So be warned for Britt's Investor Weekly hour later in this episode. But
Britt's Investors Corner.
Yeah. But I think that it's like, what is Joe, this is Joe's thing for this episode, which is she's getting into the stock market. She has only $30 to spend. And she's like, what's everyone think about oil? That's an impossible thing. And it's, again,
even in 1983?
Especially in 1983. But it's such a sort of the broad strokes of just inaccuracy,
Yes.
For a setup for a bad joke of this dumb guy saying nothing without vinegar.
I agree with you there. There's a lot of that in this episode. So Natalie, once he hears that Andy's funny, he's like, "Get me out of here. This is awkward." So he tries to leave immediately, and Natalie blocks his exit physically, and then keeps offering him different varieties of chocolate because Natalie knows how to flirt with a Dominik, but maybe not a Gil.
Yeah.
It's like hot chocolate,
cold chocolate, milk
chocolate with nuts.
With nuts.
You can nut on my chocolate bar, and I'll eat it for you.
Oh wow. Ookie cookie.
Anyway, so once gone, Natoots squeal because he's the perfect man, but he's not Nat's type because apparently he goes through girls the way Joe chews through dental dams.
I wrote down water-based lube.
Love it. And turns out this is all a fake out because Natalie bemoans that she shouldn't have said yes. Yes to what? Everybody wants to know.
Oh my God, what?
But no, they're going to be secret and go into the lounge with no doors and then shout their lines.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Tootie in this episode is this. I feel like she actually really had earwax in both of your ears because she was screaming this episode so much.
So much. And particularly in the scene when she's like, "We're going to go in here and talk." Apparently they have a date on Sunday. That's really all we learned. But this all went down after Tootie left the basketball game to go buy stamps.
Well, no. So she basically was had all this subterfuge because she wanted to leave these two people together so that they could fall in love, right? So she was like, and Natalie was like, well, Tootie's like, well, when did he ask? Was it when I went to go get a soda? And she's like, no. Was it when I went to go get a program? No. Was it when I went to go get more ice? No. Was it when I went to go get stamps? Yes. You're supposed to get stamps at a basketball game, Tootie. She's like the most annoying glottal, gross, phlegmy nonsense in this scene. And it's like, you know what? Tootie has been basically being a wing woman for you. She is doing you a solid. Listen, if it took her having to go get stamps at a basketball game
get her laid,
she is doing God's work.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you completely. I thought Tootie was a wonderful wing woman here. They introduced, it seems. Tootie introduced them.
Yeah.
He even called Natalie's eyes ravishing, so we know he's a player.
Well, he said what?
I was just saying, they are ravishing.
I suppose they are. But so he said So Natalie was like, yeah, well, now that I can talk about how excited I am about this boy, she says, he told me that my eyes were ravishing, so I didn't blink until the second overtime. Okay, so guess what dork looked into this? Do you know how long a typical varsity basketball game lasts?
I really don't.
Okay, so every quarter is 8 minutes. And so a typical match is 32 minutes, right? Game is 32 minutes. But because of stoppages like fouls, timeouts, halftime, it tends to be more like an hour. So it's like it's half an hour is regulation, and then but usually it's like 32 more minutes. So it's an hour long, right? And then, but if you go into overtime, which means that the teams were tied at the end of the game, but 2 overtimes, that means that they added on an additional 8 minutes because you go for 4 minutes per additional overtime. So that means that Natalie kept her eyes open for 72 minutes. This is a medical condition called lagophthalmos, which is something that you get when you're elderly, but it's also something which you get it if you sleep with your eyes open.
I like that you told me I don't have much on this episode, and you're pulling out the lagophthalmos.
Lagophthalmos. Yeah, but that's how deep I had to dig for this. Because here's the thing: if she kept her eyes that open that whole time, she was one of those weird starey people who's just staring at you like a sociopath, unblinking, like a murderer. You know,
like a Tootie.
And again, that'll cause corneal damage. So I hope she did blink.
I hope so too. And Natalie is going to have to cancel her bike riding plans with Tootie, because as they both agree, this random man is more important than friendship. Full stop.
No. So what I wrote down like any good win woman, when Natalie says, "Hey, so I know that we agreed to do this bike riding thing on Sunday, but that's when Gil asked me to go out with him. So is it okay if we postpone?" Tootie says, "Fuck yeah, I want to get my best friend laid. Yes, please. We can bike ride any other time." That's what a normal person would say.
But that's not what these girls said. They go, of course, this date is way more important than bike riding with me. And then Natalie goes, "I couldn't have put it better myself."
I know. That's what I wrote down. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Fuck you. It's really, Tootie was like, "Yeah, fuck me." And then Natalie's like, "Exactly." And then they start muttering nonsense, which told me that the scene was about to be over.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, blah, 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 and then like we got a fade out. I was like, oh, I thought I was having a stroke because nothing they said was making sense. I was like, oh, they like left in too much of that. Anyway, not a great editing, but we're back in the cafeteria where Mrs. Garrett is pegging today's menu into the pegboard. I flipped my computer upside down and tried to read it. Did you read it?
Yes.
Great.
I only got 4 of them, though.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and one of them I'm iffy on.
Okay. I have coleslaw.
Yes.
I have tuna with peas.
Yes.
I have Jell-O.
Yes.
And whole banana.
Oh, okay. So whole banana is definitely the one that I was iffy on. But I have Raisin Bran.
Oh.
The ones that I have, there's some that will shock you and one that's a fan favorite.
Okay. Strudel?
So in order, it was coleslaw, potato.
Oh, potato, of course.
Came back. I think that they know at this point. Next was tuna with peas. Delicious. The next one was octopus.
What?
Yes.
No.
I saw that one clearer than almost all of them.
That's crazy.
Then after that, it was spam and liver. I think they were just having fun at this point. They didn't think we could read it.
Of course.
Then I got Raisin Bran when you got whole banana. I got white bread. And I got Jell-O at the end. That was a pegboard to end all pegboards.
But this is why people tune in to the Facts of Facts, where we do a deep dive on a menu that Mrs. Garrett put up almost 40 years ago.
I love that we were both like, "Ooh, let's get it."
Tuna with peas. You know what? That actually sounds great. I'm gonna have tuna with peas for dinner tonight and a whole banana.
All right, I'm going to go with octopus, and then I'm going to go super proteiny and have some Spam and liver.
Okay. And top it off
Maybe with Spanish liver, but no, I think it was Spam and liver.
Yeah. And then what, so if you had to choose to eat Jell-O, what flavor?
Red. Or blue. Blue. If you have blue, I'd pick blue.
Okay. Because you want to have your entire mouth blue. That's
actually the only thing I don't like about blue food. I like everything else about it, except for how it makes my mouth look.
What were you about to say? Your shit?
No, I was going to go teeth. No, it's my tongue too.
I don't like the way it makes my shit look.
Have we talked about my blueberry story on this podcast?
I don't think so.
I was not allowed to eat artificial colors as a child, but I loved artificial colors, and I still do. And in particular, blue food has always been my favorite. And blueberry was out. I think it was year-round at the time. I don't know. Maybe it was Halloween. I was young. I got to go with my grandma to the supermarket, and I got to pick out a cereal. I was sleeping over, and so I got blueberry, and I just ate bowl after bowl after bowl, and then I took a shit, and it was bright blue, and I screamed, and I called my grandma, and she came, and she screamed, and we called the doctor first, and then my mom. My mom was like, "What did you feed him?" And my grandma was like, "Blueberry." Like, she just knew the minute that question was asked. Like, I did not even think about it. I just have a child with blue poop, and when my grandma was raising children, I imagine there was not much blue food.
There's only one natural blue food, and it is blueberries.
And they're not even that blue. They are blue, but they're like navy blue. They're not like...
Yeah, because the blue that you want is an unnatural blue.
Yeah! It's a good color. So yeah, that's the Jell-O. What Jell-O would you have? Vodka.
I think I would go with green lime.
Green lime. All right.
Yeah. And the best is if you make it with half seltzer and half water, because then the Jell-O is effervescent and it feels like.
Oh yeah, it's like sparkling Jell-O.
Feels like angels dancing on your mouth.
Well, I guess that's reason enough to go to the supermarket tonight. So Tootie comes in with a bowl of popcorn and makes everybody try it.
Yeah, I know.
It needs to be good or Natalie will never talk to her again.
Yeah, and so Tootie comes in wearing a actually quite fetching pink sweatshirt.
This was a home run for the wardrobe department.
Yeah, and it had ballet slippers on it, right?
Yes.
They're very cute, like ballet slippers, which she's never evinced any interest in ever, at all, ever.
Well, I mean, she is an singer, actress, dancer extraordinaire. She can do it all.
Yeah, true. I guess it is better than when they just had her wearing roller skates around and wearing a roller skate necklace, in case we all didn't get that.
Roller skate medallion.
Anyway, so she gives it to Mrs. Garrett and Blair eats it, and like Tootie's like, well, how is it? And Blair, for no reason, is completely obnoxious.
Yes, she says, it's just popcorn, you fuckface. There's no tricky sauce. You nailed it.
Yeah.
But like, you could fuck up popcorn. You could cook it too much. You could oversalt it. You can put so much butter on it that it gets shrivelly and wet. You can not season it enough, and it's just cardboard. Yeah. There are options, Blair. There's room for failure in the popcorn universe.
I agree. It could get burnt, but like, again, Blair doesn't need to come. She could just be like, needs more salt. She doesn't need to be like, hey, what's this tricky sauce?
We learned that things have escalated.
But what is this? This is at the point where I started actually being like, you know, it reminded me of an old sketch from Mr. Show, where not the sketch, which is hilarious and wonderful that everyone should go see on YouTube, but just one of the larger punchlines of that sketch is, so David Cross and Bob Odenkirk. Bob Odenkirk plays basically like a character, sort of like Ernest Hemingway, called Edmund Premington. And he comes to this very fancy, like old school, like, you know, fancy pants waspy club to tell a big story. It's called The Roar of the Lion. And he keeps telling this story about what it's like to actually be around and hear the roar of a lion. And he's telling it to all these well-heeled people, you know, like Paul F. Tompkins wearing his little like mustache and his like pinstripe suit being like, oh, you know, and I can't remember who the other people are on that show. Scott Aukerman is like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And anyway, so this story keeps going on and on and on until it seems as though, and he keeps mentioning how the lion has this incredible effect on his scrotum. Because when you hear the lion roar, it tickles your scrotum. And then the hairs on the tip of your penis contract. And then your ass nipples get erect. And it's just this like ongoing, incredibly disgusting, weird story that doesn't make any sense until finally David Cross says to him, basically, you don't know what words mean, do you? And that's what I thought, that this woman doesn't know what words mean, does she?
Kimberly Hill?
Yeah. Tricky sauce? What is this?
I don't know. It's like, this seems like, yeah, I could hear Julia Child being like, now I'm not going to do an impression, but I'm sure she has mentioned, like, you know, now this comes with a tricky sauce, or you might think this comes with a tricky sauce, but it doesn't.
It's just popcorn.
It's popcorn. So Natalie has not apparently seen Tootie in a week, despite them sharing a bunk bed, which lets me know that Gil's getting it in on the reg, which is nice. So Tootie plans to lock Natalie in a windowless room with no visitors and nothing but popcorn. Where are they going to find this windowless room at Eastland?
I don't know, maybe the basement that they got stuck in with all the water that they almost drowned in?
I guess. I don't even know where that building is in relationship to the cafeteria that they live in.
In this building.
Okay. Anyway, Blair points out that Gil Natalie, which we'll call them, started wearing each other's clothes now.
Which means it must be love. So that means that Gil is wearing Natalie's Mickey Mouse sweatshirt?
I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's probably why she's not wearing it this episode.
I guess.
She's worn it plenty.
Yeah. So she's wearing his jersey, his generic football jersey, I guess. Soccer,
anyway,
lacrosse.
Tootie looks pissed off, but there's no time for this at all. Joe's B plot has to kick in. Joe believes that in order to purchase stock, you must carry your newspaper and get your mom's signature of approval.
Mm-hmm.
So she's done both of those things. Now she's the proud owner of one share of Kramer's Compact Limo Company, as Blair had suggested. And Mrs. Garrett is really, really, really upset about this.
So again, 30 again, I didn't go down this far down the rabbit hole in terms of doing what $30 in 1983 money is for in 2021. But I imagine, it's significant. Let's say it's like $100, right? She bought one share of this limo company over the counter. She did an OTC stock. She bought it over the counter, which is a different thing than when you buy it over a regular exchange. So basically it means that it's a tinier company. And so it's just the weirdest thing that she's actually using correct lingo, but about a limo company that doesn't exist, And the only company that has ever been listed that was publicly traded that was publicly traded. It was a company called Dynasty Limousine Incorporated that went public in 2010. There is no way that anyone would own any stock in a limousine company in 1982.
1983. Yes, well, Blair gave her this stock tip because the rich are cutting back. Joe tries to extort a guarantee on her investment out of Blair, but Blair refuses, rightfully. But it's also very out of character because Joe is like, I will never take charity. You can't give me money. I don't want a scholarship. Give me none of that shit. But if your stock investment loses me $30, you're giving me $30.
But again, that's the thing, is that it's like the stakes are not high, but also for Mrs. Garrett, this is like the worst thing in the world.
It's like Joe's joined a cult. Like she's going to become a nun.
But Joe's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a leaflet out of Blair Warner's great-great-grandfather, and I'm going to be part of the KKK. That's what I've decided with my $30. I paid my dues. I'm part of, the KKK now. And it's like, but again, it's like she clearly made a stupid investment in this dumb nonsense limo company. So again, there's no point. Like, if the point is that Mrs. Garrett is like, you should be careful about gambling your hard-earned, saved money, on stupid penny stocks that your dumb fuck rich friend tells you about, then make that the point, right? Make her mad, rather than just like, oh no, at the end where she's like, yeah, I sold my stock and now I'm going to buy a parking space.
For $30?
For $30. Why didn't she have a parking space for her bike to begin with?
Where did her bike go? None of this makes any sense. But Natalie enters and Tootie's overjoyed. It's popcorn time until Natalie tells her, fuck you. I am wearing Gil's shirt and I need to give it back. But she has no other shirt to change into. So I assume she's just going to walk home in her bra. And to make matters worse, it's not even a shirt drop. Or just a shirt drop. She's also going to help write his essay for him. He didn't even ask. He's just apparently so pathetic. She's going to do it for him.
To be perfectly frank, Dominik, she was not going to walk home with a brassiere on. There was no brassiere on underneath that jersey. Those tits were low, and those were Doug's at this point.
Tootie pathetically shows Natalie the popcorn that she popped for her, and Natalie just takes a giant handful and very beautifully and elegantly shoves it into her face.
Well, I actually thought that, like, at this point, that Tootie was like, she was trying to appeal to Natalie in the way that Natalie, a surefire way to get Natalie's attention, which is,
and she eventually will,
which is with food.
Yes,
and
she will succeed with that later on.
Yeah, and so she takes this huge handful, which basically looks as though she somehow manages to put her entire fist into the bowl, touch every piece,
every kernel,
every piece, shove some of the while spitting half of it back into the bowl and then dropping the rest in. It was gross in 1983, and it's gross in COVID-19 era. It was like, this, you shouldn't be doing this.
I mean, Tootie does just throw out the corn after that. She's like, no, nobody should touch this ever again.
Yeah.
But as Natalie tries to leave, Joe stops her to suggest she get a compact limousine.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Here's what I actually, at this point, I thought, this writer wrote this little ridiculous jingle or catchphrase for Joe and then built the entire episode around it. So Natalie's on the go. She has to go and hang out with her new boyfriend. And Joe comes up. She goes, hey, Nat, you short on time and always on the go? Have you ever considered a compact limo? Ha ha. And then Natalie's like, have you had a stroke?
Yeah, the fuck is going on here? I'm going to go get fingered on the bleachers again. Bye.
Yeah.
You do whatever you. What is your B plot again? You know what? I don't care. And she leaves. Tootie tries to calm. I'm sorry, Mrs. Garrett tries to calm Tootie down, which just makes Tootie scream louder.
Yes, this is the screamiest.
Yes, it's always Gil. Natalie canceled out on her 4 times. That's unacceptable. Also, what is this phrase "canceled out" that Tootie uses multiple times this episode?
I don't know. Canceled out?
I never heard of it.
Only when you say like, well, when you're doing like, multiplication, or math.
Oh, yeah, like 0 times 0 cancels out this whole equation.
Yeah.
Sure, but not like Natalie canceled out on me.
But again, I'm not sure you know how words work.
Me?
No, it's like the Mr. Show sketch. This writer. I'm not sure.
I was worried because I was like, did I do the math equation wrong?
No. It's like, I'm not sure you know how words work. Canceled out. What is this? It's sort of vaguely close, but like.
Yeah, and also Blair is like, yeah, this is totally normal. This is what women do to their female friends when they're getting dick.
Yeah, again, as I said, this is Blair somehow managing to give the worst advice all episode.
Yes.
Consistently.
And Tootie's like, that's disgusting. But Blair says, no, girlfriends, just hold a candle until the lights come on.
I Googled that. I was like, is that a phrase? Nope. No, it's not. I don't think this person knows how words work.
I don't know. I feel like that might be the one time Kimberly got it right. Like,
well, no, I understand it, but that's not
all I'm saying. That was the one time anything was said that I understood this episode. Joe thinks this is a lousy deal, that Nat shouldn't treat a friend or a worm that badly. And Tootie's like, ouch. But like, it doesn't go anywhere. She goes on to suggest that maybe if Tootie eats her out a little bit better, they could stay friends. That's how her and Blair work things out. She's like, I guess.
Yeah, Tootie's like, thanks.
It's a really weird end to the scene, so I added my own ending. But yeah, so Joe is like, I think it shouldn't treat a worm like that. And Tootie's like, okay.
No one asked you, weirdo. Get out of here.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Can we end the scene, guys?
Yeah.
And they do. And now Nat is in the lounge chatting Blair's ear off about Gil. Now he loves Carl Sandburg and the Stooges 3.
The Stooges 3. And again, this is the sort of weird thing is that which I've brought this up before. This is continuity because Natalie Green does love the Three Stooges.
Loves them.
And I pointed this out, I think even like in the first season or maybe the second season, I said, this is how I know that this was created by men. Women don't like the Three Stooges. No one
does.
Natalie does. Because she has no self-esteem, so she has to like the thing that her boyfriend likes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
so do you
I wrote in my notes, the way to Natalie's heart is definitely through her stooge hole. Even though I was getting tired at that point.
Is your stooge hole, is that the one that you drill in 6 inches above your butt hole? Is that your stooge hole?
Is that a thing?
No.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
I don't know what the kids are doing with their butts these days, but if that's, please no. I mean, you see those big ear gauges. It's possible they're doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Blair starts getting personal.
You want to have a little bit about Carl Sandburg?
Oh, please.
So he's a poet. He is famous for a lot of his work that was like very like sort of like Chicago school type stuff. But he won 3 Pulitzers, 2 for his poetry, 1 for his biography of Lincoln. But the other thing that I just thought was very remarkable and nice about him was that he was also very famous for the children's books that he wrote, mostly to entertain his daughters, called which one was called the Rutabaga Stories, which were because he was a child of Swedish immigrants, and so and he was born in Illinois, and so he basically created like American, quote unquote, American fairy tales that like seemed like that kind of in the American idiom, because, you know, knights and princesses, we don't have monarchy in this or any sort of royalty in this country. So it had a lot of like fairy tales and like adventures, but with the worlds were populated with skyscrapers, trains, corn fairies, and the 5 marvelous pretzels.
Butter and salt, honey mustard, sourdough, sticks, original twist.
Pumpernickel?
Okay, we could put pumpernickel in there instead of sticks.
Yeah, get those sticks out of there.
I do love a pretzel stick, but okay.
Okay. Anyway.
Oh, wait. I forgot about soft.
Oh, wait. I forgot about soft. Okay.
What are these pretzels? The 5 what pretzels?
5 marvelous pretzels.
5 marvelous
in the Rutabaga
pretzels.
Stories.
The marvelous Miss Pretzel?
No, the marvelous Mrs. Pretzel? The
Sure.
the 5 marvelous pretzels.
Okay. Blair starts getting personal, asking if Gil got her flowers and how big his philodendron is, which I thought was a little personal, but apparently it's not a very big philodendron, according to Nat's face. He was like,
well, here's the thing. Again, this was sort of like one of those bizarre things where it's sort of like, I don't think you know how words work, Kimberly.
Yes.
So Blair's like, so did he send you flowers yet? And Blair and Natalie's like,
yeah, he gave me a philodendron. Well, what's that mean?
And Blair's like, well, you know, it's a potted plant, so it's serious. And she's like,
roses would have been better, right?
I mean, she's not wrong, but I guess philodendrons last longer.
Exactly. So here's the thing. If you are signaling your intent with a new paramour, and you give them cut flowers, that's nice. That's everyone appreciates flowers. But if you give them a potted plant, you're in it to win it. You're here for the long term. Because that thing's in soil. It's going to live forever.
All right, so it seems pretty serious.
Anyway, so let's talk a little about philodendrons. So they're a potted plant that can be around, I'd say, the size of a small shrub. Like the size, let's say, a medium watermelon, right?
Okay.
But sort of puffy like that. They're a plant. They're not flowers. They are typically very hardy, hard to kill, and are confused often with a pothos plant, which is one that I own. So.
Very, very interesting.
No, that wasn't interesting at all. But I do think that it is significant that this weird show took 2 minutes out to talk about a random plant.
Yes, that we never see, but Nat's face did imply that it was not that large, but we don't really get to explore stem girth because Tootie arrives with news that she has heard the new Lionel Richie song.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did Lionel Richie release a song in 1983?
So actually quite a few,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I could actually pinpoint one that came out the week this episode aired. Or at least the month that this episode aired, but it seems within like a week or two. So the single that came out around the time of this episode was called My Love, which is the follow-up to You Are. My Love, not that great, but You Are is famous.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with it? You are my sun, you are my rain, that makes my life feel full again. You need to know I love you so. I have to finish it now. And I do it all again and again. Whoa. Okay.
I'm glad that our podcast has turned into us just serenading one another at this point.
You know what? It's lonely during these COVID times, and I'm glad we can sing to each other. But what's interesting is I do think that "You Are" was such a massive hit, and it came out in January, which is probably right around when this episode was going into production. So Lionel Richie was a home run choice. But then the single that he does release around this time was the last single from this album, and it didn't do much. It doesn't show up on all his greatest hits. However, right after that single was the lead single from his next album, which was in August of '83, and that was the one I think they were kind of counting on it being. And that's All Night Long. You know that one, right? All night long. You see the other part?
All night long.
All night, all night. All right, anyway. I was a big fan of Lionel Richie's early 80s stuff. Anyway, that was probably the song that they were hoping to evoke, but Tootie bringing it up like it was she was like acting as though it was the lead single from his new album. Not like the fourth single from his old album that had been out for a year. So anyway, Natalie gives exactly zero fucks about this, even though she was the one who said, Tootie, you got to hear this song.
So Tootie, so yeah, that's the thing. So Blair and Natalie are kibitzing and doing like boy talk, right? Being like, how big is his dick? Tell me, describe it.
Philodendron.
Describe it in detail, right? And then Tootie busts in, right, from that weird side door that we don't know where that goes or who comes. It seems to go to the train station, but also just some random alleyway.
It goes to the Lionel Richie song.
Yeah. Anyway, so Tootie comes in. She's like, nah, I'm so excited. I listened to that Lionel Richie song that you recommended. Oh my God, it's so amazing. And Natalie's like, fuck off. We're talking about plants here. Go away.
Yes. So she just turns back to Blair and is like, you know what, Blair? Love is all there is. There is no Lionel Richie. There is no Jermaine Jackson. There is only love. And I have felt it because I am old enough to. Blair's like, is he calling you between classes? And she's like, yeah.
Obviously.
How did you know? Oh my God.
Is that something that people would do? Imagine, here's the thing. Imagine Natalie going to math class at 8:30 in the morning and then rushing back to her dormitory at 9:30 to talk to Gil for 3 minutes on the phone, and then rushing back for English class at 9:45, and then rushing back at 10:45 to talk to Gil for 5 minutes, and then rushing back to go to science class. You'd think that Natalie would be a wraith after all this exercise.
It seems unsustainable.
It also just seems weird. Like, what are they? Who needs all these updates? Like, it's like, my husband could be upstairs for, 2 days, and I would be like, oh, how's it going up there? I don't need like a minute to minute, play by play.
Yeah. Even
again, I guess I'm not in the first flush of true love like Natalie is with this man we're never going to see again.
That's true. Back in the day, I mean, you would have left a Thompson Twins show for this guy.
That's true.
Long story, long personal story. So anyway, when Gil's around, even the most boring, tedious stuff like hanging out with Tootie becomes almost bearable. Tootie tries to relate to this, like that time that they fell in the duck pond or whatever, and Natalie's like, no, not like that.
So
you're a child. Shut up.
Yeah, so again, that's the thing about this is that it's like as soon as something happens, everyone, like as soon as like one girl slightly changes, it's like one girl gets a boyfriend, one girl gets their period for the first time, one girl like, it's
going to be a really good episode next season.
Oh,
apparently there's something wrong in Peak Skill where they all get them really late.
Okay.
None of that's true.
Like,
we don't have a very special period episode.
Anyway, but it's like again, then Natalie is like needlessly cruel to her best friend who's just sort of like, yeah, remember that time when we went roller skating and it was so fun and it was awesome and then we fell in the duck pond? Yeah, wasn't that fun? And Natalie's like, shut up, go away, get out of here. Why are you even here? I thought I told you to get the fuck. I thought I told you to kill yourself.
I know, and then Tootie's like, please just explain love to me so that we can be friends again.
Yeah, she's like, just explain it. I'm trying to be empathetic. Please, explain it to me and I will try to be your friend. And Natalie's like, it's impossible. It's ineffable. It's impossible to describe.
Yes. So she just ignores Tootie again and goes back to chatting up Blair because Blair's the town slut. So, she knows what Natalie's talking about. Plus, classic Natalie, she talks herself into the idea that he's just planning on letting her down easy.
But again, it's like this odd this is the thing about Natalie, is that she's like vacillating between like, oh my God, I'm in love with him. It's the best. He calls me all the time. It's so cool. Everything we do boring stuff together and it's still amazing. I feel like they're like the couple like on SNL with Kevin Nealon and Victoria Jackson where they have the couple's toilet, where they flush together, like for the couple that does everything together. Have the most intimate activity together.
I will say that I have been to Britt's house, and her husband have a lovely couple's toilet.
Thank you.
The couple is the ghost that lives inside it, though. That's the
yes. That's the throuple. That's the third person, the third spirit in our.
Well, I was trying to say that you can only fit one person on it at a time, and then the ghost is the second one. But you're like, no, we can get both of us on the toilet. We do number two.
Because
two stuff.
I'll explain how engineering how it works. So when you sit on the toilet, Peter sits on the toilet like normal, and then I sit on his lap, straddling him, facing him, and then the ghost is between us.
Oh, that's cute. I thought it was going to be Human Centipede style at first, and I was like, oh God, I don't think I want to hear this.
No, it's way more romantic.
So before Tootie can chastise Nat for ignoring her, and Blair can chastise Nat for her low self-esteem, Joe comes in thrilled because somehow compact limousine stock is up.
Yeah.
It's up a quarter point, so they're going to go on Swiss vacation with her freshly retired mom.
Yeah, because she says, my God, I can't believe this. My stock is up. Mom's never going to have to work again, and we can go to Switzerland. And then Blair's like, it's just up a quarter of a point. I wouldn't start the yodeling classes just yet. And the thing is that that's literally a quarter. She earned a quarter.
She's really excited about it, though. Like
again, and I've said this many times before, Jo is, she's the smartest one at Eastland. She is there on scholarship. Everyone knows that she's incredibly smart. And yet, she is always stupid.
Stupid with money. She doesn't understand money. 25 cents is a lot to Jo. In the Bronx, 25 cents will get you an apartment for like 3 weeks.
True.
Anyway, Jo dances out of the room asking if people know about this whole stock market thing. She was taught it in class. She told us that earlier in the episode. Like, this is such a piece of poop, this episode. Yeah. Natalie's also on her way out. She's got hot dinner plans with Gil. Tootie shouts, he only likes you for your English outlines.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me just pause you right here. And I thought that there could have been so much dramatic intrigue if Tootie wasn't just acting out of jealousy and just sort of pure sociopathic lying. If she actually knew that Gil was kind of a lazy moron and she suspected that he was using her best friend for her English outlines, right? And was looking out for her. If she did see Gil, flirting with another girl, like on the quad or whatever, she's looking out for her. She might have overreacted by saying that, no, she's not here right now when he calls later, but like, I thought that could have had so much more dramatic friction rather than just Tootie being like, I miss my friend, so I'm going to fuck up her brand new relationship.
Yeah, yes. This is not a subtle one. You would think that this would destroy Natalie's confidence, by the way, that Tootie just shouted that he only cares about her for her English outlines. But instead, she just turns to the audience, faces no cast members, just looks directly at the audience to tell us it's one of those fancy Japanese restaurants where you leave your shoes on at the door.
You leave your shoes at the door.
I added the word on. You're right. I did.
She was at the door, and then she's like,
Blair, what should I wear?
and Blair's like, your best socks, I guess. I don't know. I can't deal with your nonsense anymore. Let's just keep it moving. You know, it's like, Blair's like, at this point, I don't even want to deal with you.
Yes, and then everybody leaves except for Tootie, who sits alone on the couch like a weirdo. So you know something's about to happen.
Yeah.
And it does. The phone rings, but she doesn't even move. Like a weird entitled. It was so strange. She's just like, ugh, the phone's ringing.
She's
and then like
the only one there.
I know. She's like, seriously? Nobody else in this empty room is going to get this phone?
But also, the thing is that this is not Tootie continuity. If there's anything Tootie wants to know is she wants to have the information, she wants to control information that comes into Eastland and out. So she would answer the phone, it doesn't matter, all hours of the night. She wants to know who's on the end of the phone. She wants to know if it's Blair's, shitty mom, if it's Natalie Green's shitty cheating dad, if it's Natalie's real mom, like she wants to, she's the gossip. So for her to be like,
no, I don't want to answer the phone
is absolutely un-Tootie-like.
I agree. There couldn't be anything un-Tootier. Anyway, so she answers the phone so rudely.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, what? And then it's Gil, and she's like, yeah, I'll tell her. No, I won't forget. Goodbye.
I know.
So weird.
Well, I will say that I did enjoy her phone acting, because she's just like, she's mad at the phone, and then she's like, yeah, hello. Hi, Gil. Yeah. No, meet at the bookstore at 6:30? No, yeah, of course I won't forget. What the fuck do you think I am? Goodbye.
Everything right except the end is like goodbye. It's such a weird goodbye.
And the other thing is that it's like, so Tootie, like, again, also the thing about Gil that every person should know is that if you're serious about someone, you better win over their best friend. Yeah, because otherwise they're going to sabotage your relationship.
That is the fact of life that you should be taking from this episode, because it is true. Nat comes in, and Tootie was like, that was Gil. She was like, oh, good, because I was going to ask you to hang up the phone because I wanted to call him.
I'm not sure you know how words work. Like,
or anything works. Because Tootie, I guess, I would think in the script, probably was like, ew, that was rude. Now I'm going to lie. But that's not what she does. She's just like, oh, no, he canceled.
Yeah.
He canceled out.
Yeah, of course, canceled out.
So Nat wants more info, but Tootie has none, which is enough reason to call Gil, get that info. This seems like a not sustainable plan.
No shit.
But
devious mastermind that Tootie is, she's like, okay. I started this lie. And now I'm gonna go deeper into the crevasse. I have to go deeper into the crevasse.
Yeah, so there was apparently somebody there with Gil. And Natalie's like, oh yeah, that's Robert, his roommate. That makes sense. He's always there. And she's like, does Robert talk like this? And bats her eyes like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, Robert doesn't bat his eyes, and that's not how I hear his voice. No. But now Tootie confirms all of her best friend's insecurities. There's a woman there. Yeah. Natalie is dying on the inside, and Tootie's like, want to go catch a flick?
Yeah.
And
here's the thing. She not only goes immediately to the jugular, because she says, as you just said, this is the biggest insecurity that that Natalie has, which is being abandoned for another person, right? Like her father did with her mother, right? Because he's a cheater, right? And
of course.
And so if Gil is now cheating on Natalie, that immediately brings up these like daddy issues. And so Tootie goes for the jugular and says, "Hey pal, want to go to a movie? We can eat bonbons and jujubes."
Actually, at first, Natalie, when she just says movie, Natalie's like, "A movie? Are you serious?" And then Tootie's like, "Oh yeah, shit. Sorry.
I'm gonna
a movie with jujubes and bonbons." And then Natalie's like, all right.
Well, Natalie's
my life.
Yeah, no, Natalie's like, "You're my only friend. Thank God you're here."
It's so creepy. And also it's like
it goes from like, "I'm in love with Gil. You don't understand what love is, Tootie. Go away." And now she's like, "I should kill myself. You're my rescue boat, Tootie."
And what happened to Joe and Blair? Are they not your friends? And also, when Gil meets the gang, he looks at Mrs. Garrett and goes, "Introduce me to your friends. Your friend, this old lady that I'm just assuming you're friends with." So you got friends, Tootie. I'm not Natalie.
Yeah, but again, that has happened multiple times when Mrs. Garrett has been introduced as one of the girl's friends.
Yes, quite a bit.
All the time. They did that with Tootie's brother.
That's true. That's correct. And so Tootie sociopathically grins and goes, "You can always count on me," and then ushers her out to the lounge to a life of spinsterhood and bonbons.
Yep.
Cafeteria lounge, cafeteria lounge, cafeteria lounge, cafeteria. So we are back in the cafeteria where Natalie is sitting glum when Gil walks in demanding to know where she was. That should have ended the conversation, but it doesn't. We get 2 minutes of nonsense. We get like an actual who's on first that is neither funny nor does it track.
It was appalling.
Yeah.
And it kind of got like they got rid of the anxious tension that they had between them, where he was like, "Where the fuck were you?" And she was like, "Where the fuck were you?" And he's like, "I was at the bookstore." And she's like, "No one told me you needed to be at the bookstore." And he was like, "I told Tootie about the bookstore." She's like, "But Tootie didn't tell me about the bookstore. But I was at the bookstore."
That is far more coherent than what they actually offered us.
Anyway, so then the two of them are just sort of like, "Oh, wait, so we had a miscommunication."
It takes forever to get there, even though they're just miscommunicating over and over again. It's really, really infuriating. And it's immediately apparent that Gil feels stood up, and yet Natalie's not picking up on anything, just chewing away at common sense like it was a jujube. To be fair, we could have gone this whole episode with this misunderstanding. Like, we could have had misconnections, miscommunications, and that could have been the whole episode. They didn't do that. At least we have that to thank them for.
But again, what the thing is that what I was saying before is that if they had just amplified the fraughtness of your best friend having a new, infatuation and all these brand new feelings because she's, going to be condescending to you because you're a little girl. Now that, like, I've been fingered to completion by Gil, I've seen, what God looks like, Tootie. So go back and go skate into the duck pond. Get out of here, you little 8-year-old. But like, then if Natalie was just sort of, unfortunate and mean and condescending to her best friend Tootie, rather than being like, Tootie, you were the one that like introduced us. You got us together. And then as soon as Tootie started suspecting that Gil was not on the up and up, then, it would have had a very dramatic arc because it would have been Tootie being suspicious of her best friend's new boyfriend.
This show can't handle a dramatic arc right now. Anyway, so Tootie walks in as they're doing this.
Yeah.
And she could have so obviously gone the other way. We know there's a door in the kitchen with stairs that lead right to their bedroom. She could have seen them and been like, I'm going to go the other way. But instead, or she could have been like, I'm going to go to the deep end of the cafeteria. But no, she chooses to hold up a bright orange folder in front of her face 6 inches from where Gil Natalie is having their wacky misunderstanding. You could use the whole freaking giant cafeteria set. But Natalie wants to talk to Tootie even though she's slipping away. So Gil, very well adjusted in my opinion, is like, all right, I can see that things are fine between you and me. You work out your shit with your friend. I'm not even mad that she did it. Just I'm getting out of here because this is too hairy.
Yeah.
And we're now in Mrs. Garrett's room.
Yeah.
Where Tootie is forcing help on Mrs. Garrett, who is very confused, and also folding a fitted sheet. I refer to you to our previous episode on fitted sheets, unless has there been any new innovation in fitted sheets that you'd like to share with us, Britt?
So that wasn't a fitted sheet. That was a non-fitted sheet. That was just a top. That was a top sheet. So
I'm so embarrassed.
It's okay. This is your first infraction, so it's just a fine right now.
Well, if that's the case, then that means that you could probably tell us a whole lot about top sheets because we only talked fitted last time.
It's true, but I feel like I might go on for like way too long if we have to do like another like Brit's sheet hour. But yeah, no, Tootie is literally just being like manhandling Mrs. Garrett's bedding, being like, "Let me help you."
Yeah, and she's like, "What is happening? I don't understand why you're forcing me to."
Mrs. Garrett's like, "I can fold this by myself. You don't need to help me." It's sort of like it would be like someone being like, "Let me like help you put your top on." Like Mrs. Garrett's like, "It's."
Can I spoon that yogurt into your mouth, Blair?
Exactly.
So then we hear Natalie screaming up the stairs. So Tootie, now well established at hiding, as she did in the previous scene, covers herself with the unfolded sheet. Fuck you very much.
Yeah.
Natalie storms in and barks, "Sit down!" and so forcefully that Miss Garrett does. This is probably the first chuckle I had, was how funny Mrs. Garrett sat down on the bed. Which is really, your episode is in bad shape when we're in Act 2, and that's what was the first.
Yeah, when Dominik's first big laugh, guffaw, is Mrs. Garrett sitting funny.
Yeah, not good. But anyway, Nat was talking to Ghosts of Bed Sheets Past. So Natalie pulls down her sheet and says, "I knew you were in there." Like, yeah.
What else could have been? Casper, the friendly ghost, whatever. Anyway, Mrs. Garrett's like, "Okay, you two clearly need to like talk shit out. I'm going to extricate myself. I'm going to get myself out of here. Please, I can't deal with this."
Also, when Nat's like, "What do you do? Why did you do this?" She's like, "I was cold." We're not talking about the sheet. God, Kimberly Hill, get your shit together.
I'm not sure you understand how words work.
So Mrs. Garrett's really trying to sneak out, even though this is kind of the closest thing to her job description that has come up in like 8 episodes.
Yeah, I completely agree. She should be there to help. And then she keeps being like, "I don't want to get in the middle of this."
And that's like, you need to know there's a liar living in the house. That's true. Yes. And a sociopath. She's terrible. You've known this for a while.
You want to know who the liar is in this house? Every one of them. They're all liars. Every one of these characters has lied multiple times.
Not Gil.
Not Gil.
Tootie wants Mrs. Garrett to stay and hear the hilarious thing that she did so that Gil Natalie will get exactly what they deserve. Tootie's motives are wacky.
I don't know. Yeah.
So Nat tells Mrs. Garrett what Tootie did, and she's appalled.
Well, yeah.
And but then she's also busy reminding herself, "I'm not going to get involved."
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you should get involved. You just found out that Tootie is canceling Natalie's dates without her knowledge. Say something.
Yeah.
And Tootie repeats the line that Gil is using Natalie for her English prowess, something that goes nowhere and is so odd that they keep bringing up. And he's just going to dump her after finals. Also adding weirdly, she sees too much of him. Which devolves into what is the purpose of a best friend? To tell you what your boyfriend is using you for English tips or supporting you when you find somebody that means something to you. Natalie realizes this is all about Tootie not being Natalie's number one anymore.
Yeah, and then Mrs. Garrett apparently has to explain that that's not how friendship works.
Yeah, she acts like it's the same thing. It's equally as bad as what Tootie did. Is you saying that there are things as friendship tiers?
No. What is this? What lesson is that?
It's nonsense. All of this is nonsense.
And to be perfectly frank, there are friendship tiers.
Yes.
There are people who you invite to your wedding, like Dominik. Then there's the tier next down, which is everyone else I know.
That's right. I was the one attendee at the wedding, and I'm very proud. I also had to help the Justice of the Peace remember the name of the groom at one point.
That's true. But again, I do have to say though that's not also that's a bad lesson, Mrs. Garrett. You know, like there's no such thing as one or first or second place. It's friendship. Like, yeah, you shouldn't pit your friends against one another. But like, to be perfectly frank, if someone has developed a romantic relationship with someone, then your friendship with them is going to be next one down. You know, it's sort of like, I don't see my friends that have children that often, you know, because they have children, you know.
And who wants that? Mrs. Garrett refuses to take sides, even though Natalie is so obviously right, until they both demand that she does, and she does not take sides. And she says that Tootie shouldn't lie, but Natalie shouldn't say this first and second. There's room for everyone. Natalie's like, fuck you. Leave your room. And Mrs. Garrett's like, gladly.
Yeah. She's like, I gotta get here.
And so then we're back in the cafeteria, and Blair's checking out the Stock Prop Daily News when Mrs. Garrett comes down to inform us that time has passed. It's really hard to tell when these girls are always in their uniforms what day it is.
It's impossible. And also, that's the thing, is that Blair is just sitting in the cafeteria pouring over stock information, right? And Mrs. Garrett's like,
oh, wow, it's nice to know that someone lives here.
Yeah, what the fuck is she talking about? Because, like...
Also, Mrs. Garrett, you like, don't joke about that. You live across the hall from these four little girls. You should be checking on them every night to make sure they're in the building.
Yeah, I mean, she says, like, Nat's back with Gil gallivanting and Tootie's out making new friends, mingling. Okay, that's fair. Maybe they're not here so much. And then she goes, and Joe apparently only stops by to check the Dow Jones. That's not a reason to be out of the house.
Also, let me just explain something that annoys me about this, is that Joe is buying stocks for like no money. And she did it in an over-the-counter trade, right? Which means that she has one share of a tiny little company, like nothing. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is 30 like blue chip stocks. It's a way of basically taking the temperature of the United States economy. It's like Amex, GE was on there, was the longest running company that was part of the Dow Jones. Coca-Cola, Apple, Microsoft, Boeing, Chevron. It's a way of basically sort of looking at the of how healthy the economy is. But maybe in 1983, it had more influence. But now people kind of don't really look at it. It's a high level way of understanding how well the United States economy is doing. But Joe would have no interest in that for her tiny little no stakes trades that she's making.
And if that is the reason why she's in the house to check the Dow Jones, what is the reason she's not?
Out trading? I don't know.
I don't understand at all this line of dialogue. What the fuck was going on? I don't know. Blair also doesn't know, but she just wasn't listening. Blair's seen something bad in the paper.
Yeah.
And since the paper can only mean one thing about stocks. Compact limousines are just not taking off. Joe can't see this. She says several times until Joe is in the room.
Until she basically summons Joe by saying, Joe can't see.
Joe can't see. Oh, no.
Joe can't see this. Don't show this to Joe. Please, don't show this information to Joe. Please.
Joe can't see what? Hey. Joe walks in. Blair lies. Says it's the fashion news. Halston has a new line coming out.
And then Joe's like, you need a new line. Fuck you. Give me the newspaper.
I did a little bit of Halston research.
Okay.
So Halston did have a new line coming out in 1983, and it ruined his whole life.
Ah, okay.
So Halston put out this,
in the compact limousine.
It is similar. It is Halston doing the compact limousine. Halston sold a line called Halston 3 to J.C. Penney. And J.C. Penney was considered so low rent that all of like Bergdorf Goodman, all of the Bloomingdale's said, you know what? We don't want to be associated with the Halston name anymore. It's been cheapened. And so he lost some portion of his company. And in 1984, ended up being banned from making designs for Halston.
Wow.
Yes.
I feel like Halston at some point was the brand name was then sold to a conglomerate at some point in the 80s.
Revlon bought it. And he did the inaugural design for the Halston Revlon thing. And then he was fired. And they were going to continue on the name without him. And he was fighting that. And he contracted AIDS. He moved to San Francisco. And he was cared for by his loved ones. It was like his whole empire crumbled. All beginning with this 1983 line. So
it was Blair. Blair did this. Warner Textiles ruined Halston's career.
Exactly. And in unrelated bad news, Joe's stock nosedove. I know it's nosedived, but I feel like it should be nosedove.
Yeah.
A whole point.
By 1 point.
Yes.
That's so if she bought that one stock for $30, it's now worth $29.
She's ruined all of her riches. All of them.
Yeah, she's like, oh my God, I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna jump out. I'm really
Blair.
She says this is an apocalypse.
Yes, she says. She says apocalypse now. You said it was a short winner. She really tries to make Blair feel terrible, and Blair does. But Blair's like, look, I'm not E.F. Hutton.
Yeah. Which is the thing that we referenced earlier, which was another reference, which they happened in an earlier episode of The Facts of Life, which is a commercial for a bank or a financial services company where it's just famous for being old men. And it's like, if you're listening to what E.F. Hutton has to say, people will listen. It's like when he speaks, people listen. And it's like, little girls don't know this.
Well, yeah, this is the second E.F. Hutton reference the show has made, and the man has been dead for 17 years from the time the show premiered. So that's just odd. But Joe becomes visibly threatening, and if we recall, that was only 2 weeks ago that Blair was punched in the face by Joe, and now Joe's threatening to murder her, stalking her out of the room, and Mrs. Garrett, who witnessed the assault 2 weeks ago, just looks up like, yep, Joe's gonna go punch her now.
Well, that's what happens when you place a losing bet. Mrs. Garrett was like that. I don't get involved in this sort of stuff. I had an ex-husband who was a gambler, and I throw those people out on their ass. So don't come crying to me when you lose $1.
And is it really $1? Because didn't it go up a quarter? So she lost 75 cents.
So she lost, 75 cents.
Anyway, so Natalie bursts in, upset about something Gil did, but Mrs. Garrett has no idea what it is. Neither do we. They're not going to tell us. Nat storms around looking for Tootie, the friend she's been shitting on for weeks. Apparently, Tootie's out with Terry and Jenny. Do you remember those two memorable characters they're bringing back?
Well, I remember Terry. I don't remember Jerry. I mean, Jenny.
Jenny. I bet you'll remember Jenny's bio, which we'll go back into. But Natalie hopes that she'd just psychically know that Nat needed her and Tootie would come running.
Mm-hmm.
It's being completely insane. Friends are just supposed to be there when you need them. just sitting there for you, waiting for you to come back after you, spent 3 weeks blowing Gil. Mrs. Garrett slowly recaps everything that Natalie just said to highlight the hypocrisy. And basically, Natalie does instantly get it. She's like, oh, fuck. She got low self-esteem. But she's like, I'm a terrible person.
Well, there's a lot of this, like, it's like, I said that? I said that? I said that? Oh, I said that. Oh.
I'm gross.
I'm the worst. Aw.
Yes. It's nice that we're getting a mid-scene recap of the scene we're currently watching. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody was lost. So Nat realizes she's a creep. She just needed Mrs. Garrett to point it out. I guess that's what she's there to do. Not buy yogurt for the kids. Not keep Blair from getting beaten up a second time. Not to mediate arguments, but just to tell Natalie when she's being a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Blair comes in, hoping that the Joe coast is clear, but Joe sneaks up behind her, and Blair screams, and
yeah,
that was, excuse me, that was kind of the only time I really laughed.
Well, because it was kind of like a physical comedy thing, because as you point out, that there are multiple entrances in and out of this building that if you really wanted to conceal yourself and secret yourself away from someone who said that they were going to murder you, you could leave the premises and disappear. Whereas,
no, you can't, because if you go out one door of the cafeteria, what happens is you come out the other side.
Oh, so it's like an Escher painting? Okay.
Yes, it's called Azad's Curse.
Yeah. That's what this show is. Did Azad give me a curse? Did I like, burn some tanna leaves and, kill a witch in my past life?
I got cursed by Azad as a child, and I cursed you with it late in life. That's what happened. So Tootie finally comes in with Terry and Jenny flanking her. Terry is, of course, played by Cheryl Epps. This is her 5th and final appearance on Facts of Life, and her final acting appearance overall.
Yeah.
Aside from this, she played Margaret on a single episode of Benson. That's it. Jenny is played by Ricky Schroeder's sister, Dawn Gregg.
Ah.
Yes. This is her 2nd appearance on Facts of Life. She will return again in season 6 as a completely different character, which is crazy because she's so memorable here.
Yeah, really memorable.
Dawn Gregg can be seen,
especially when I watch it where I can't clearly see anyone's facial features at all.
Yeah. She doesn't have any. She's just,
to be perfectly honest, the only reason I can tell anyone apart is the fact that Mrs. Garrett has giant red hair and is usually dressed in the most brightly colored thing. And then we have, Blair's giant hair and, Tootie is black. But like, aside from that, everyone is kind of invisible on this show. Like they don't make them seem, differentiated in any way.
Well, I think that's more Daily Motion's website giving you bad resolution, but that's just a guess. Dawn Gregg, this is her 2nd appearance. She can be seen on a single episode of Silver Spoons. She does Jennifer Slept Here, Double Trouble, Different Strokes. Back in these days, she was known as Dawn Schroeder. She wrote and starred in a handful of shorts in the past decade, including That Motherfucker and something called Journey to Jemima. Dawn Gregg fans will be delighted to know that according to her IMDb profile, after she and her husband Bradley Gregg, a.k.a. Eyeball Chambers from Stand By Me, took a self-imposed hiatus from the industry and moved to the Sonoran Desert, they are finally back in Los Angeles with their tribe of 5 children, and they are developing many projects.
Great.
Yes, I thought you'd be excited. Anyway, Natalie sighs extremely loudly in front of Jenny and Terry as they're trying to compliment Tootie on how hilarious she is and how great she is. And Tootie kicks the extras out politely when they say, like, you want to go to a movie? She's like, no, that trick doesn't work on me because I don't need food. Then she just finally, when they're gone, she's like, Natalie, what's wrong? Natalie's like, there's nothing wrong. She's got her head.
I want to just pause you right here.
Please. So
So we get Terry and Jenny, right?
Mhm.
And apparently Tootie, Terry, and Jenny were all in some sort of situation where they ran into a creep, according to Tootie, who came on to her and said, so this weirdo came up to me and said, I'm a Pisces. That's the fish. And then delivers that like that's a come on or a joke or creepy or gross. And then Terry being like, okay, now I'm going to make my move. I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to take Natalie out. I'm going to be Tootie's best friend here. This is it. This is my big moment. She goes, yeah. So then Tootie said, I'm a Taurus. So that's bull. And I felt like the crickets from 1983 were loud in my house. Like the audience was just like, what? Again, I don't think you know how words work. What is going on here?
It is odd. It is just a series of misfires left and right in this episode.
So I did look up. So if it is true that if it is canon that Tootie is a Taurus,
let's say it is.
So she's an earth sign, which means that she's solid and practical, but also sensual and drawn to material goods. That makes sense to me. That feels like Tootie, right? Yeah. And they have a bratty selfishness, according to a thing I read. George Clooney was a famous Taurus.
Well, I wonder if he and Tootie will get along when he joins the cast.
Yes. Anyway, yeah. So then
That's the second George Clooney reference in this episode that didn't have to do with him being on this show.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's how ubiquitous George Clooney is.
Yeah. So Tootie is basically like, ugh, new friends, get out of here. You weren't impressive. Leave. I need to deal with my horrible old friend who. Yeah.
You got your acting guild check. You're good.
Natalie is doing my least favorite thing anyone can do, which is when someone says to you, what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. Natalie just goes,
nothing. Nothing's wrong. Nothing. I don't think something's wrong. Nothing.
And then she rubs her face directly on the cafeteria table and says, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life.
And Tootie has to extract from her best friend.
Tootie does. She's like, I'm your best friend. I can always tell when you're not happy.
And
I think E.F. Hutton can tell that she's not happy. And he's been gone quite a while.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just that obnoxiousness of like sucking the air out of the room, being like, nothing's wrong, while weeping and having fear diarrhea. You know, it's like she's just diaphora. But that's the thing is that Natalie is such a sort of selfish jerk that like when she perceives this thing that isn't actually true, she does not know that Gil is, maybe cheating on her or not, but she's just this, black hole of emotion where she sucks in everyone else's energy and is like, nothing's wrong. I'm fine. Nothing, please. No one come to my rescue. I don't need any help. I know how to swim. I'm not drowning. And it's like, you're in the water. I can see that you don't know how to swim. You definitely just need like a life vest. Please just help. Let me help you, Natalie. No, I'm good. I love the water. She's such an asshole.
Yes. So Tootie pulls Natalie into the lounge to get the skinny, sits Natalie down and says, like, what happened? It takes Natalie a solid 45 seconds to get out the words that she saw Gil with another chick. Talking. Ugh. So nothing even happened. This is all nothing.
No,
nothing. Everything about this episode is nothing.
I know. And she says, I saw Gil with another woman. That people laughed at. Because it's like, Natalie, you're not a woman. You're a little girl.
I actually thought that. And then when I was playing it back, I was in the other room making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I heard the episode going. And I was, when she says another woman, I heard the laugh track, and I was like, oh, because Natalie's not a woman. Why was that laugh there? Anyway, then Nat recaps the Tootie plot of this episode, sort of Mad Lib style.
Yeah.
She's like, then I told you, and you did, and then why did you? Because you should have stuck it in your, but then you never wash your, and then it smelled like, and it was very, very frustrating. Also, poor Cheryl Epps. Every time Tootie is told, you know what, go kick rocks, find a new friend, it's always Cheryl Epps.
Yeah, I know. And Tootie rejects her in favor of Natalie, who sucks.
Yeah, and she didn't even get a proper goodbye. That was her final episode. Goodbye, Cheryl Epps. From the Facts of Facts, thank you for your service. 5 times you were shit on by Tootie.
You would have been a much better friend than Natalie is to Tootie.
Probably. Natalie admits she's been a rotten friend to Tootie. But Tootie was way worse. Natalie says that's not the point. The point is that Natalie abused her friendship with Tootie for the sake of a man, and she shouldn't do that.
Again, I'm not sure that is what Natalie did. She might have neglected her friendship with her because she was constantly orgasming, and that's very addictive because, you've got all those love hormones in you all the time, and so it's sort of like, yeah, I'm not going to hang out with you and go roller skate into the duck pond anymore because I'm not a child anymore, Tootie. So fuck off. Yeah. But again, I do think that the stakes could have just been so much higher with this.
Yes.
No stakes.
No stakes. Tootie starts going on a rant, realizing she finally has the upper hand for a second. After outwardly attempting to destroy #GilNatalie. So friendships take time, care, and input, she says.
Sure.
Shut up, you liar.
Yeah.
And finally, after she's done shrieking, Tootie asks if Gil is more important than her. Natalie says no. She's a contemporary woman of the 80s. She wants it all. And that includes bedroom cake.
Yeah, definitely bedroom cake.
And now Natalie needs more help with the Gil problem because apparently they have not talked this out enough. So Tootie has a plan.
Yeah.
It was like, if we didn't have a weird enough episode where nothing happened, we're going to now wrap it up with an extreme version of nothing happening.
Yeah. So what's the plan?
Okay. So the plan is go to the phone. Okay. Dial his number. Now, Tootie needs to give Natalie a dime for making the call. This was honestly the biggest revelation in this whole episode, was that the emblem, the Eastland emblem on the chest of their thing, is a tiny pocket that you can put dimes in. So she just pulled one out of there. Thought that was the most exciting thing that happened this whole episode.
And as I said, this was the wardrobe department in this episode. They were like, you know what? We're going to get crazy in this one. Okay, guys. We're going to be the only good thing, the only memorable thing possible.
Emblem pocket and a ballet sweater. So, yes. So, and then for some reason, Natalie needs help to do what to do once she puts the dime in the phone. We're like really stretching. We just really need to get to the end of the episode. And to the point, Nat's like, what do I do next? She's like, speak to him. And then Natalie's like, what would I do without you? And then Tootie's like, we covered that already in this episode. Earlier on the couch, in this scene, actually.
Yeah.
I've already recapped stuff in this scene. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And then Natalie nods, calls Gil, who most definitely was fucking that chick that he was caught talking to, because we never see Gil again. Yeah. And then in 3 years, all of Hollywood can also say that.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's our episode. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Nothing happened to the point where the Facts of Facts might have been able to come in under 2 hours for once.
Highly, highly irregular.
Yes. But yeah, I thought this was a really shitty episode. Next week, some girls are going to get into colleges. That's exciting. So we'll deal with that, and we might get a little bit of a peek into the home life of one of our girls.
I'm always confused about this because it's like we want to keep the gang together, right? But, we also want to show their sort of personal growth, right? And so is it basically going to be sort of like Saved by the Bell, where everyone goes to, Bayside College?
You're going to see. I will say it's called Langley.
Okay.
But yes, at least 2 of the girls are going to go to Langley.
Okay.
But I don't want to spoil college acceptance episodes. So.
But the other two die in a mysterious plane crash.
There's a fire.
Oh, okay, good.
It kills a frog.
Oh.
It's a stuffed frog.
Oh, well then it didn't die.
Well, its head was chopped off with an axe. I don't know if that helps. Anyway, that was our episode. It was not my favorite, but I feel like we did a decent job covering it.
Yeah, I had to do such a deep dive. I had to get into the medical condition, which is where you sleep with your eyes open, which is how I felt while I was watching this episode.
Well, they're all riveting from here on out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, our lovelies, I know I've got a fan favorite coming up. I know some of our lovelies also have some fan favorites coming up in these next couple episodes. I do think they close out the season strong, and we are getting ready to say goodbye to Eastland. So savor these moments.
But what about this revelation we just had with the keeping of your telephone money in your little pocket?
Well, it's like one of the last secrets of Eastland unlocked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like the door, the tiny pocket, and the bok choy room.
The Azad paradox, which means that you run out one door and you enter in another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many secrets, and we will cover them all. Still got a couple episodes left in Eastland, so get all the stuff out of your emblem before you have to return your sweater. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.
Adios.